Welcome to the Fiskars 18-inch electric conversion kit install video from Reel Mower Mods. For this installation video, you're going to need a 3mm hex key, a 4mm hex key, a 5mm hex key, a 10mm socket, an 11mm socket, some type of driver. This is a 3/8 socket wrench, needle nose pliers, 10mm wrench, 13mm wrench, the thinner the better on the 13mm, Phillips screwdrivers, and a set of Crescent wrenches. Now, you don't have to use a drill, but I am, and that's going to speed up the installation drastically, but you can still get this done in under an hour without power tools. Alright, after you've gotten your tools together, make sure you have all the required parts. You're going to need your battery adapters. Got a set of DeWalts here. I'm also going to show you how to do an ego. Wiring box. Make sure that all your hardware and stuff is included in there. Hardware kits. Motor. Speed controller for the bars. Your motor bracket. It comes pre-installed with the chain tensioner and your main conversion bracket. First, with your 10mm socket, remove the chain cover. This installation is done on a Gen 1 model, but the Gen 2 model is almost identical except for a few things later. Now I'm going to save all these parts and bag them up. They're not needed for the kit, but in case you ever want to do anything different, we're going to put everything in this and Ziploc bag it. Alright, so now we have this exposed. You don't have to remove this rear sprocket, but I recommend removing both of these just to get all that out of the way, and it just looks much cleaner and you don't really have any need for this. It's very easy to uninstall both of them. Next, take your 5mm socket wrench and remove both the front and rear drive sprockets. There is a set screw on top right here on both of those. You just have to spin it around to find it. Here's the front sprocket set screw. And then in the rear, we'll rotate this by hand. Do it very carefully here. Make sure not to get your fingers caught in the gears. Okay, and then you can see you can rotate it around for the rear. Make sure it's seated firmly. Now I'm going to grasp the reel blade carefully as I undo this. And it can be in there pretty tight, but as you can see, you can do it with a basic wrench like I just did. Go ahead and just unscrew that completely. Alright, I got the set screw out of the sprocket. Now I'm going to work it off of the reel shaft here. It can be a little difficult, but just keep pulling and it'll pop off. Take the chain and drop it in the chain cover here. Now we'll move down to the rear sprocket. Okay, same thing. It's down in there. Now for this one, if you don't have a socket wrench, this is already a little loose honestly, but you're gonna have to take this and then use a pair of channel locks to grab this right here to be able to turn it. If you can, turn the set screw towards the back of the mower because it's easier once you get it broke loose. So I'm just going to take this out completely, and then same thing, just kind of work this off of here. It should pop off. There you go. Alright, now I'm putting everything in the chain cover here. Okay, when you're finished, it should look like this. Nothing on either shaft. Ready to move on to the next part. Next, using a 10mm socket, remove the two 10mm bolts on the grass shield. Also do it on the other side of the mower as well. For the Fiskars Gen 2, you will not be removing these bolts because the shield is located up higher. Now, these bolts can be a little tricky sometimes removing because there's factory Loctite installed on the threads. So make sure you have a very good 4mm hex key and you can even heat these up with the blow dryer if you have a hard time breaking them loose. Okay, before moving on, if you're using an Ego battery system, go ahead and install the battery adapter before putting the bracket on the mower. To install the Ego adapter, it's very simple. It comes with the bolts on it, goes right in these four holes here, and then you're gonna face it to where it goes that direction, so the battery will slide on this way. Next, install the 4 nuts on the bolts underneath. Now, take your 10mm wrench and your 4mm hex key and tighten up all 4 bolts. Next, using your main bracket hardware, put the main bracket on side by side. So we're gonna lift it up, we're gonna slide it over here. It's supposed to be pretty snug. Be careful of the reel blade. Now, this can be a little bit challenging to line up, but the easiest way I found to do it is just to look at it visually until you can see the hole. You can get your screw in here and line that up at least in the shield first. There we go, and then you just find a hole, which got that one. Hand thread it. Oh, slipped out. There we go. This one will be much easier now that we have a base point in front. See it there. Put it in. So we get that one started. Alright, perfect. Got that started. Now leave those loose and do the other side. Okay, once you have both sides with the hardware threaded, go ahead and tighten it up. And you don't gotta torque this insane, but just give it a little eighth or less turn after getting tight. Take note, for the Gen 1, you'll be using the bottom holes in this bracket. For the Gen 2, you use these holes to mount the bracket. Okay, for the Gen 2, we're removing these with the 4mm. See, that one's still a little tough. Get that later. Okay, so here is your Gen 2 mounting bracket hardware, and you can see that there is a special bushing that needs to be on all 4 of these bolts that fit right in these holes here perfectly. Now this can be a little tricky to press these in because I made it a nice tight fit because they will wear in, but I want it to be nice and snug. Here's what I recommend. Take the bushing and press it by hand into the bracket. As you can see, it will stay stuck in there. Press it so that the back is flush back here, and do that on both sides. Okay, I got my bracket bushings pressed in on both sides, and I'm just going to slide the bracket over on both sides, get it seated. And line up the bolts. It can be a little tricky to get it lined up, but it's not too bad. So we got our front bolt here. It's going to be right there. And then I'm going to look to the inside of the bracket again through here to see. Back one up as well. See, once you get the first one, the rest are very easy. those hand threaded, and then we're going to fully tighten them. And it's going to press into the plastic. That's kind of the point. Tighten both sides fully. Now, before tightening these fully, make sure your shield is adjusted where you want it to be, because it's going to be locked in place by this hardware. I suggest having it all the way down for front throw mode. Okay, now that we got our main bracket installed, we're going to install our motor bracket. So take your motor bracket and then your 6 10mm hex screws and thread it in the top bracket. Should be pretty obvious where it lines up, but it's the 6 threaded holes, and you want to make sure that this part here is facing that direction forward. Use a little assistance to speed things up. And you want to go ahead and just firmly see all these. Now the 2 on the edge here will feel maybe a little rough because they're right on the bend line, but you shouldn't have any trouble threading those. Make sure these are good and tight. Just a little more here. You do want to make sure these are all fully tightened so that this is all seated flat on the main bracket, because that's going to increase the rigidness of the kit. Corner here. Okay, that should be good. Chain tensioner here. Okay, next we're going to install our sprocket. Now it can be a little hard to get this on. It is a pretty tight fit. Just make sure that the screws are backed out all the way, and we're going to put the long one in the hole in the shaft here. So these screws need to face the inside of the mower, and it should look like that when installed correctly. So go ahead and try to slide that on. You might have to kind of smack it a little bit to get it to line up, and then you're going to start threading this in, because you'll know when you're in the right spot whenever it goes down in the hole, which doesn't seem like it's fully on to me. So I'm going to keep tapping it. Okay, I think we got that time. Yeah, because it's threading down in the hole. Sweet. Okay. So, go ahead and thread the long set screw here down in the hole. This can take a minute, but I'm going to cheat again. Okay, and make sure it's fully seated and tighten it down very tight. You don't want to round it out, obviously, but if you have a long handled 4mm, that's ideal, and just torque that thing in there good. And then the same with the other set screw here. This is something you want staying put. Okay, that one. Torque that down. Okay, next we're going to install the chain tensioner bolt. It's the 8mm bolt that has 2 nuts and a washer. Go ahead and remove the bottom nut and washer, and then make sure that this nut is fully threaded all the way to the top. Okay, we're going to put that bolt right here in this hole, and as you can see, there's a special cutout for the hex to sit right down in there. That way it holds it so that it won't spin whenever you tension it. Makes it really easy to tighten up. Alright, now we're going to install the motor. So you want the wires to face towards the back of the machine, And then you can see there's a little slot here and a slot on the shaft. You want to basically just kind of slide that down in there. And it can be a kind of a snug fit. That's on purpose. We don't want it to be sloppy. And then you're going to spin it to line up this hole and this hole here. Then you'll take your M6 bolts that are about 15 millimeters and start to thread in one hole. And just get it started, a few turns, and then move to the front one. That one. Okay, once you have all the bolts in the motor, here's what you want to do. You want to make sure that it's down as far as it can go, and then go ahead and tighten these, but you don't want them to be tight. You want them just to be finger tight. So this is where having a hand key comes in. So just barely less than tight, because you want this to be able to slide as we tension the chain. So we're going to get this in here. Okay, that's good. Tighten the back ones. Okay. Remember, we're not going for tight. We want it to be able to slide up and down. So okay. Next, we're going to grab our chain. Now this can be a little bit tricky, but it is possible, and we're going to do it together here. So here's what you want to do. Go ahead and put the chain on the top sprocket and slide the chain under the tensioner here, and then start to slide the front only over the bottom. Now, the easiest way to do this is to grab the reel over here carefully and just rotate it forward, and then just kind of carefully guide the chain on, and you can see it'll pop in there just like that. Perfect. Now be careful, don't let go of this or be sloppy. You control that, or it can kind of jump forward and maybe get your finger. Okay, now that we got our chain installed, we're going to come over here to our tensioner bolt, and we're going to spin the top nut counterclockwise. So that would basically be kind of spinning it that way, so it turns counterclockwise. Okay, take your 13 millimeter wrench and starting to tighten this chain tensioner, which is counterclockwise, so to the right here. Now, if you can't get in there with yours because it's hitting that bottom nut, go ahead and use the needle nose to just grab it and turn it until you get far enough, and then you should be able to slide yours in there. Now, here's what we're going for here. We want a 1/4 inch of deflection or so. So we're going to tighten this up quite a bit more here, and then we'll show you how to measure the deflection. So as you can see, I'm just tightening this. The chain is continuing to tension. And we're getting about there, maybe a little less than a 1/4 inch. Okay. All right, so basically, when you're looking at this, just take your screwdriver, kind of line it up on the chain there, and you want it to be pushed about a 1/4 inch in. So that's just about where we want it. Should be perfect. Then go ahead and tighten all the motor bolts. One thing to make sure of here, make sure that the motor is flat in the bracket. Looks like this is perfect. It can kind of have the tendency to want to pull a little bit as you tighten this, but you just need to kind of press it down and make sure that it's flat, and then go ahead and tighten these and these bolts here. Okay, after tightening the drive assembly, we just want to take this and rotate it by hand and make sure that it's spinning. This feels super smooth, like butter. Love it. Should be good to go. After making everything is running smoothly, you want to install the washer and the 8 millimeter nut underneath here and tighten it against the bracket to prevent it from loosening up. Now this can be very hard to install. Put a pair of needle nose pliers in from the front and use those to hold the washer up there, and then you can reach in with this hand and this hand and spin the nut on. What I like to do is put the nut on the end of this hex key and run it up under there and use that to hold it, and then I'll spin it with my left hand. It's definitely doable, not too bad if you have the right approach. Okay, next we're going to install the wiring box. You'll take the two 10mm screws and put it in the slots there, and then it goes in these two holes right here on the deck. Alright, so don't tighten these fully. Just snug them and then slide this out of the way over to towards the motor this way. Now we have the Ego adapter installed right now. We're going to show you how to install any other adapter next. Okay, I got my DeWalt battery adapters here. No matter what kind of adapter you have, the process is going to be the same here. So first thing you're going to do is just take the battery and put it in the adapter or one of the adapters. Then you're going to peel off that VHB. Okay, so basically I'm just going to try to line this adapter up between the center here. Between the center here, these 2 points, and then also kind of visually make sure that I have the separation that I need for the adapter there in the second battery. So on the Ego, okay, so I'm gonna stick that down there. Looks straight. Then I'm going to take the battery out of this one, put it in this one, and then make sure that it clears the box here and that there's enough space here as well. And then I'm going to line them up close, stick it down. There you go. Next we're going to remove this battery. We have both of our adapters stuck here. We want to make sure they're in the exact position that we would like, and then we're going to go ahead and drill and tap our screws. Alright, we got our number 26 drill bit from the kit, and then our self-tapping screws here. So what we're going to do is we're going to drill a hole here, here, and here, and here, here, and here, and then we'll hand turn these in to get it nice and firmly seated. Okay, we got our holes drilled. Now you're going to take one screw at a time and go ahead and self-thread in the holes here. You're going to want to use a little bit of downward pressure as you turn it. You'll see that it will automatically go in and seat nice and firm. It's key to use the right size drill bit here. If you don't, this will not work correctly. And the reason we're not using a power tool here is we want to be able to feel when it tightens up. These are aluminum threads, so they're not as strong as steel, but plenty strong enough for this as long as you don't overpower it with the drill driver. Okay, next we're going to line our wiring box up where we want it. I'm going to center it on the logo here. and then we'll tighten both of these two screws. Okay, next we're going to remove these quick connects from our adapters. Make sure and twist this wire a little bit, and we're going to stick them right through these two holes in the wiring box. Pull it all the way through. Like so. Should be nice and clean like this whenever you're finished. Okay, next we're going to install our speed controller. So you'll need your wiring straps and the speed controller assembly. Now for the start by removing the two 6mm bolts and the bottom clamp. Okay, if you have the Gen1 Fiskars, in order to fit the control box right here on the bar, you actually are going to need to flip this little black brace here. So you'll need your 11mm socket. You'll take this, and this out, flip it around and reassemble, and then the controller box will go right here, nice and easy. Okay, when you're finished, it should look like this. Okay, we're gonna bring our control box assembly right here, and you can see that it fits right above the shield, right back in this spot, just perfect. So get your bolts in there, just hand thread them, get the screw to catch, and then we'll tighten this down. Now you just want to make sure that it's straight. And you don't gotta tighten this insanely tight, but we do want it nice and snug so it's not slipping around when we're trying to mow. All right, when this is tightened correctly, the gap here will be equal on both sides. All right, we're gonna take one of our cable straps, and the way that these work the best is to come through here like this, tighten it on the bar first, and then come around your cable here. So these are nice and firm right here. Again, we're going around the bar first, like so. Over here, nice and firm. Okay, so take the end of your cable, twist off this nut here. We're putting all of the wires through the nut, and then we're going through the coupling here. Just push firmly and then kind of wiggle around. And then once you can see the shielding on the other side, thread the nut on, and you want to tighten it just right whenever the shielding can be seen. Now we got a nice tight connection there. And next we'll wire everything up. Okay, to complete the wiring, we just need our Wago connectors. There should be four, 2 fuses. You only need one, but I left it back up in case there's a mishap. The fuse block and the cover. First thing is take a fuse and go ahead and put it in the fuse block. Okay, so take the fuse. I'm going to put it right into these little terminals right here. Push down firmly, close that, twist the ends, and then go ahead and put one of these connectors on one side. You flip the lever open, slide it in like so. Okay, so we're gonna come over here with our straight connectors and go back to our battery adapter. And then we're gonna go from the red to the fuse block here, close that. And then it's gonna go to the red wire to the controller box. Close that. And it's good to kind of pull all these wires out of the way as you're working so they're not in your way. Just kind of squish them down in there. Then we're gonna go black to brown. Now, this is the black wire from the battery adapters. Okay, and then we're gonna grab our motor wiring here and we're gonna come in these two holes down here. One wire, black wire first, pull that through, red wire, and then I'm gonna pull it all the way snug so it's nice and tight. Looks good, and then kind of pull these out. Be careful not to poke yourself, twist them up. And then we're gonna go black from the controller box to black motor wire. And then we're gonna go white wire from the controller box to red wire on the motor. All right. Again, verify you have your fuse seated. Good to go there. Everything's connected. Now we're gonna make sure that it works before we button it up. Before putting the batteries in, make sure that the controller is in the neutral position and the knob is off. All right, now we're gonna put our batteries in. And then we're gonna test to make sure everything's working properly before we button her up. Okay, first time starting the controller up, we're gonna go to the forward position, which is to the right, the double marks. And we're just gonna turn it slowly on, make sure everything sounds good to about 15. And let's go check on the drivetrain to make sure we're good to go. Okay, everything's operating perfectly smooth. Great. So now we're gonna go back and just increase slightly, a little faster, to make sure everything's okay. Perfect. Now, we're just gonna take this cover. All right, and lastly, we're gonna install our chain cover. Should have two M6 bolts. They're 30 millimeters and they just poke out just barely. There's a hole here and here. You're gonna need your 4 millimeter hex key, and we'll line her up. This one first. Get that threaded, and then this one. And you just need to snug this up, nothing crazy, just tight. Couple notes on the controller. For backlapping, you'll use this direction backwards. I would not go any higher than 10 or 15 for backlapping. For forward direction, I would start around 40 to 50% controller speed and see how that looks on the turf. If it looks a little bit choppy, you could speed it up a little bit or pick up your walking pace. Just dial it in from there. All right, you've successfully installed your electric conversion kit for the Fiskars StaySharp Max. We hope you enjoyed the video. If you have any issues, feel free to reach out and email us camran@reelmowermods.com. see you out there.